Hello, welcome back to the Allen channel, and today I'm going to be talking about Gnosticism, what it is, and why it's potentially dangerous to believe it or to believe things like it. If you're curious about Gnosticism, want to learn more about it, here's a video for you. So, I think the most important concept in Gnosticism that people need to know before they get into it, well, not get into it, but understand it, is the importance of revealed/hidden truth. So, you have this truth, but it's hidden. It's not easily accessible, easily seen. And, somehow, some way, it will be revealed to the person, which will give them insight into how the world works or how things work in general. And that's extremely important in Gnosticism because it's one of the defining characteristics of it. We have this hidden truth, and then we can reveal it to you and you can understand reality more. Alright, so Gnosticism, it wasn't necessarily a heresy. Well, it was a heresy in early Christianity, but it was more of a disposition. You would see it in Christianity, but you also see it in other groups. That would tend to be heresies of other religions, say Zoroastrianism or other religions during that time period, that created a dichotomy of the world like this. You have this true hidden God. He would be uncreated, perfect, eternal, but he would be hidden to humanity. You couldn't see him. Important thing about this hidden God, he's supposed to be immaterial. So, he isn't of the material world, which is important for the lesser evil God in this dichotomy, which the true hidden God creates. Oftentimes it's almost like by dissension of creation, meaning that great things lead to less greater things, which eventually lead to this evil God, as they claim. And this God that the Gnostics claim created the world materially. So the material world's actually a creation by an evil God, versus the true hidden God. Now, the reason why this dichotomy is important is because it establishes that, alright, so you have this material world, it's created by this evil God, and he has control over it. But there's also truth. So you can learn from this hidden God, this true God, that's more powerful than the evil God. The real truth of reality and how things are actually supposed to work, and the ways to achieve gnosis, or knowledge, of this reality. Hence why it's called Gnosticism. Gnos in Greek means knowledge. Now, the way that, I guess what you call it, it became a heresy in the church is that, okay, you have the creation of the world in history, and then you have Jesus, his life, ministry, death, and resurrection. It didn't start immediately after his resurrection and leaving the earth, but, late 1st century, early 2nd century, you started to see strands that were claiming that Jesus had secret knowledge. They revealed to a couple of his followers that supposedly claimed the Gnostic vision of the world. Which, of course that's just wrong to the Christian view, but, a lot of Gnostics claim that, and that's why they were such a big problem for the church, because, if you claim that the material world was created by a lesser God, that's evil, the demiurge as they call it, the true God is hidden away in this immaterial realm, then the material world doesn't matter as much to those people. So that obviously creates a lot of heresies. Do they believe in the Trinity? Probably not. And then they have a different idea of, Jesus' purpose. Instead of salvation or calling people to repent from sin, the idea of Jesus will be more about learning hidden knowledge about the true world, which obviously isn't very Christian. So, yeah, that's why the church considered it a heresy. Another important thing I forgot to mention is that a lot of times the Gnostics claim or the Gnostics used to claim when they were Christian heresy, that the serpent in the garden was actually telling the truth, basically. That the tree of good and evil, was the way for the true hidden God to reveal, Gnosis to these poor people who were created in the lesser evil God's world. So, yeah, obviously that flips the entire biblical story on its head. Instead of God created a good world that fell, it's there was a they claim that there's a true God who eventually led to a lesser evil God who created the material world and has basically been torturing humanity through existence. Of course, that's extremely nihilistic. That's just not a good thing to think about, or not a good thing to think about necessarily. It's just wrong, and it's terrible for a person to imagine that their existence themselves, their physical existence, is a terrible thing. So in a lot of ways, Gnosticism acts as a death cult because it's telling its followers that the immaterial world is inherently good, which I mean, of course it is, but it's created a dichotomy in which the material world is bad while the immaterial is good. So we must escape to the immaterial world, a sinking ship, if you like to call it. And I mean, that's just not good. So of course the church cracked down on it. Very interesting thing. They wrote a lot of gospels, if you can even call it that supposedly show how their revealed knowledge was imparted, or their revealed knowledge as a whole. I think the most famous these days, is the Gospel of Judas, which claims that Judas of the Bible received, he received knowledge from Jesus, about how the world works, and the difference between the demiurge or the evil God versus a true hidden God. It basically creates a narrative similar to this, but not exactly. The Gnostics tend to switch slightly in details for a story. I mean, you gotta remember this is early second century. People aren't like communicating easily, so they are going to create different stories. And considering that it's a heresy, it's not guided by any good teaching. Anyone at any time could add something to it and bring it down an even worse path. So ultimately, they create a lot of gospels. Gospel of Judas is the most well known. There's also the Gospel of Thomas. These are all apocryphal, so not true gospels. And they eventually this heresy gets cracked down by a church. There's groups like the Valentinians or the Maricians, I believe, who try to proclaim this this heresy in one way or another. But the early church fathers, obviously did not like it, so they cracked down. And as Rome, started to enter its late age, and eventually fell, and Christianity became properly entrenched in Europe and for a while the Near East. It died down as a Christian heresy. Of course, in the East there were still religions that had Gnostic tendencies. Manichaeism is the most obvious example I can think of, but as a very commonly accepted worldview, it was not by the 5th to 6th century. Now, of course, the dangers of this view is that it's devaluing our life. The material world's evil, and we need to escape to the immaterial world. So, your actual physical body or the physical life is very important. It subverts the Christian message. It also subverts a lot of other religious messages you can imagine. I mean, most religions take different views than, of course, what the Gnostics do. The only religion that's even close to that is probably Buddhism. But most religions do not take such a view. So, in order for Gnosticism to be a part of a religion, they basically subvert the message. In Christianity, that's very clear. They create the whole mythology about it. It also happens in other religions. And then they also have a more subjective view of reality. You can't take an apple Well, in the Gnostic view, looking at Apple, I mean, it's not really an apple on their side because the material world, was created by this demiurge who can move and change it as much as you like. It only matters what the end material is, which of course, you know, creates problems for here and devaluing the life. So, yeah. Anyway, that's my explanation. Of course, I gave my opinion on it, and fair enough. I mean, I'm not trying to convince people into it. I'm trying to explain what Gnosticism is. Um, I hope you guys have gotten a good explanation, and I'll see y'all later.